Gyokuro caffeine levels are some of the highest in the world of tea. In this video, we're going to learn why caffeine in Gyokuro is so high and also how much caffeine is in Gyokuro green tea. Before we get started, it would really mean a lot to us if you could subscribe to our YouTube channel and stay tuned for future tea videos. We have hundreds of videos on all sorts of topics related to Japanese green tea, but for this episode, we're going to focus on Gyokuro specifically. Without further ado, let's get started. Why does Gyokuro have caffeine? The reason that tea contains caffeine has to do with how the tea plant defends itself against insects. The tea plant naturally produces caffeine on the outer layer of the tea leaf in order to protect itself from insects. Caffeine can be very bitter or even poisonous to small insects, so it makes for good protection. Ironically, this caffeine content in the tea plant has made it more desirable for humans. The first people to drink tea in Japan were the monks, who found that it enhanced their concentration during long periods of meditation. We now know that this was due to the combination of caffeine and L-theanine. Caffeine is of course a stimulant, but L-theanine can actually slow the absorption of caffeine and induce a calming effect on the brain. These two work in synergy to give you a calm, alert feeling that lasts throughout the day. Even though Gyokuro green tea is high in caffeine, it's also high in theanine. That's why you won't get the crash or the jitters you normally associate with caffeinated drinks like coffee. The reason that the Gyokuro caffeine content is particularly high has to do with how the tea plant is grown and harvested. To be considered a Gyokuro, the tea plant needs to be shaded for 3 weeks or more prior to the harvest. During this time, the tea plant is cut off from sunlight with a special type of netting called kabuse. The reason this is done is because it stops the tea plant from producing bitter catechins and allows it to maintain sweet and savory theanine. It also increases the caffeine in Gyokuro. The shading process can be a stressful time in the tea plant. It produces more caffeine to protect its leaves from insects. This is why if you're looking for a tea that's high in caffeine, Gyokuro and other shaded Japanese green teas can be a great option. How the picking affects the Gyokuro caffeine content. The caffeine in Gyokuro green tea is also affected by how the tea is picked. The farmer selects the top 3 sprouts of the tea plant, as these are the sweetest and smoothest in flavor. These tea leaves also contain the highest caffeine content. The younger sprouts of the tea plant are more tender and vulnerable to insects. In response, the tea plant produces more caffeine in order to protect them. This is why teas made from younger leaves have a higher caffeine content compared to the ones made from tougher, mature leaves and stems of the tea plant. Because of the shading and harvesting process, the Gyokuro tea caffeine content is among the highest in the world of tea. The caffeine content of Gyokuro imperial green tea. The reason Gyokuro is known as imperial green tea is because it was once the tea of choice for the emperor. Before the widespread use of refrigeration, the quality of a tea was assessed by how well it maintained its flavor with age. The emperor would often wait a while after the harvest before evaluating the tea. Because the flavor of Gyokuro tea is maintained or even improved with age, this was always the tea that the emperor selected for his private collection. Gyokuro producers still compete all around Japan to be the tea of choice for the emperor. How much caffeine is in Gyokuro green tea? The answer is between 120 and 140 milligrams of caffeine, but this can depend on a few different factors. Let's cover how the caffeine content can change based on cultivar, brewing, and temperature. First, cultivar. The Gyokuro tea caffeine can depend on the variety of tea plant being used to make it. For example, the Saimidori Gyokuro cha meijin will have a higher caffeine content compared to the Yabukita Gyokuro cha musume. This will only have a slight impact, but the difference is there nonetheless. Next, we have brewing. The Gyokuro tea caffeine level can also depend on how the tea is brewed. What some tea masters will do is brew the tea with 5 grams of leaves and only 50 milliliters of water. This really concentrates the flavor and the health benefits of the tea into a smaller space, but it also creates a high caffeine Gyokuro tea. The final factor that can influence the caffeine content of Gyokuro tea is the temperature you use to brew the tea. Caffeine is one of the chemical compounds in tea that is extracted at a higher temperature, so the lower you go with water temperature, the less caffeine you will extract. If you're looking for a low caffeine Gyokuro, you can also cold brew the tea. This will not only create a cool, refreshing cup of green tea, but it will also lower the caffeine content. This is perfect because when you first taste cold brewed Gyokuro, you will want to drink it all throughout the afternoon. While the amount of Gyokuro caffeine can vary greatly based on how the tea is produced and prepared, it tends to be a very high caffeine tea overall. You should avoid this tea if you are sensitive to caffeine, but if you're looking for a replacement for coffee, Gyokuro tea can be exactly what you're looking for. After traveling around Japan for the past couple of years, we've met with dozens of farmers and sampled many different Gyokuro teas. The best ones we found are produced by Mr. Sakamoto, a talented farmer in the town of Shibushi. If you'd like to try some of Mr. Sakamoto's Gyokuro, you can start with the Cha Musume or the Sasa Hime. If you're already a seasoned Gyokuro drinker, you may prefer the Gyokuro Cha Meijin or the Gyokuro Wakamusha. When you order tea from us, you're not only helping to support this channel, but also helping us to support the dozens of talented farmers we work with all around Japan. We believe that by sharing their stories and their teas with people all around the world, we can help to transition the tea industry into a more positive, sustainable direction. Thank you all so much for watching this video. If you have any questions about Japanese green tea or tea in general, please feel free to leave them in the comments below. Until then, we'll see you next time.